That's enough of that. That's enough of that. Good morning and a very big welcome to you. My name is Andrew Mallett, and yes, I do have the t-shirt. But we are going to be taking a lot of time today to take a look at PAM. We've been listening to what you've been asking for, and you have previously asked for PAM, pluggable authentication modules, but we used a simple example, so we used the Mkhomda. Now, whilst that's really useful, it is also one of the simplest ones to show. There's no real ordering that we need to be concerned of, mainly because it takes place as a session-type module. Where we're talking about authentication modules, we've got to be really careful on the ordering, and adding an entry to a service configuration file may not have the desired effect. So we're going to take a look at how we can lock user accounts on failed login attempts and see how the ordering is important, and more importantly, understand why that ordering is important so we can make sure any future entries that we put in are always going to be ordered correctly. Hello and a big warm welcome through to the command line of my Ubuntu 2004 system, where we're going to build on our understanding of PAM. Now, we are working at the command line as a standard user, and we're going to be taking a look at the documentation. Now, look, I do know you're not going to like documentation, but sometimes we are going to have to read it. It gives you an easy way to get the information that we want. And if we go into man space pam.d, we get into the configuration file documentation. And we can see as we move down, we're going to stop as our service types. Now, we've probably seen these and we've used these already when we were looking at Mkhomda. We were using the session type, but we've got different types. We've got account, auth, password, and session. Account happens where we've passed authentication, but then looking for account restrictions, such as are we allowed to log on at this time of day? Authentication, as the name suggests, happens during authentication. Password happens whilst we're changing our password. And then session happens once we've passed all other types and we're then ready to present the service to our user and start their session. So this then becomes our type, but closely following our type, we're going to have a control for a module, and it's this that can cause us some problems. Just moving down a few lines, we're able to see our control values. This is looking at the success or failure of executed modules. When we choose a required control type, the module must pass with success, but all other modules are also going to be executed. Whereas the important difference with requisite is that we still have to pass with success. However, if the module fails, then no other module is going to be executed. It's a stop and let's stop now control. We used optional before because we weren't really worried about the success or failure of the creation of the home directory. But very often during authentication, we're going to be using required or requisite, and it's the requisite entry that we have to be very careful of. But we can just use Q now to get out of the documentation, and you all can breathe happily now. We don't have to read the documentation anymore. We've read it. So if we go through now and create ourselves a brand new user, we'll make sure the home directory is created by adding in the option -m, and we'll create our user Gandalf. We'll go and set its password. Now, we can use the passwd command, but another way of setting passwords without having to go into the interaction of setting the password twice is to go through and echo the user account, colon, and the password value, and pipe it through to sudo and passwd. And there it's done. We're not going to be prompted to enter our password, so it becomes a really easy way, especially when creating users through scripts. But anyway, that's not really what we're looking at. We want to then go through and make sure that we are able to lock user accounts that are using the wrong password to ensure that people aren't trying to break in as other users. So taking a look at then PAM, our pluggable authentication modules, we'll begin by listing using an ls-l on our PAM pam.d directory. Remember, it was the pam.d man page that we were looking at. So /etc/pam.d. And we can then go through and see that we've got configuration files that represent authentication services. But also, not only can we share the modules, we can share much of the configuration. And we see several files that begin with common and then the service type. Now with this, then we can add in shared entries across multiple services. And we'll be using the common auth file. Now, of course, we could just edit the file, but I'm sure you know how to use an editor. We can look at different ways to edit the file, and we can begin with an easy way of just echoing information through to the file. But we'll be using sed to make future edits. So come on, let's go through and do something worthwhile. As I say, appending to a file is really easy. We can use echo as a standard user. There's no point using sudo in front of echo because our redirection, if we're considering doing that, would work at the shell level. So we've got to consider a different command to write to our file. But importantly, we want to work with our auth type. We are using the required control. Now, required is good. Remember, required has to succeed, but allows other modules to execute. The module we want to execute is pam_tally2.so. We're going to set some options. On error, that will equal a failure. That seems fairly obvious. Deny equals 5. So we're going to allow a fairly generous 5 bad login attempts. But then if we haven't put in a correct password, we are going to be locked out. The unlock time, unlock_time, is going to be set for 300 seconds. So you'll automatically clear those values after 300 seconds. But we can also reset as a root user, and a successful login before the denial will allow you also to clear the bad login account. But obviously, once we've been denied, a successful password entry isn't going to help us, and it has to be either timed out or unlocked by the root account. We're going to use the vertical bar to pipe information through to sudo, and using T-A to append, important to remember that option -a, through to our etc and pam.d directory and the common auth file. Now T will write both to the file and through to the screen. So as I clear my screen with a control and L, give you time to check that everything is correct, and then hit the big enter key, we're able to see the entry on the screen, but it's also gone through to the file. If I look at tail -n1 and then the file name, we're able to see the entry has been successfully added to the end of the file. So we might expect it to work. So using su -Gandalf, put in a wrong password, and we can see that we're getting an authentication failure. Now, of course, that's what we're expecting. We're not expecting us to be able to log in with a wrong password, but we do expect the bad login count to be incremented. We can read that with the command pam_tally2. And when we take a look for the user Gandalf, well, it's not incremented. So this is where we might feel that, okay, I've done everything that I read I should do, but it's not working. But if we go through and grep for those evil requisite entries, so if I can spell requisite and search for requisite inside of our common auth file, we can see that requisite is included. Now remember with this, if the module returns a failure, then we don't process any other modules. Now we know we put our tally2 towards the bottom or at the bottom, so this must have happened before we got to tally2. We must make sure that our tally, our counting of the bad logins, happened before any requisite module. So what we're going to do is first of all delete our current entry, the entry we just put in. Now, again, we could go in and edit the file, remove the last line, but it's really easily done through sed. Sed minus I, and then $D. $D is deleting the last line. Now, okay, I need to elevate my privileges. Dollar represents the last line. D is the deletion command. Running the command again with sudo in front of it then works fine. We're now going to put the entry in again, but at the start of the file. So again, we use a line number, but we can actually specify line number 1 because we know there is going to be a line number 1. Dollar just represents the last line, but we don't know what line number it's going to be. We can choose I to insert and then paste in the same line that we had before. So on line 1, insert this line and then just specify our file. Now, if we don't specify to do the -I, the in-place edit, it prints to the screen. But this is always a good check to make sure then it's reading correctly. And we can see our first line is correct. So now we know then our first line is correct. We're able to go back and use sed -I for the in-place edit, run exactly the same command again, and now we know this is the first line of our file. As we try testing our Gandalf account again, we can see putting in a bad password doesn't change anything. We still don't get access. But when we go through now and take a look at our pam_tally2 command, we will be incrementing that bad login count. So if we look at it for our user Gandalf, we can see we've now got a failure, and that failure count is going to increment, and it will increment until we are locked out. So we can see it's got to 2. A successful login will clear it, or the root user can clear it. We'll take a look at a successful login now. So if I go through and use my SU, put in the correct password now, log out again, and go back and reread the count, we can see that we've cleared the previous failures. If we create another failure, so a bad password, and let's say the user had continued and had locked themselves out, we're going to leave it at our 1, but we can assume they've got up to 5. We can then go through and reset, so -R to reset. It does print the count, but if I then go through and run the tally again, we can see it also cleared the failures. So hopefully this gives you the idea of how we can lock user accounts that are using bad passwords, but also the importance of the correct ordering in your PAM files.